All right, so if you're watching this first video, that means that you struggled a little bit with finding the area of one or a couple of these rectangles that are at the top of the page, the first 6 shapes on your homework number 10. So I'm going to go through them really quick, one by one, so you can see the process of how to solve them, and hopefully if you got them incorrect, you will be correcting your work along with me as I am doing the work. Hopefully you don't just skip to the end of each problem just to see the answer and move on. It's not very helpful for you, but I realize if you are one of the people who do that, you are probably already skipping to the end right now, so you're not going to hear any of this. So anyways, moving on. This first problem, you have a rectangle with 15 centimeters on one side and 5 centimeters on the other. So the area of a rectangle, the area of a rectangle is the base times the height. So I don't want to keep writing this over every single rectangle that I do or that I solve. So go ahead and just remember that or mark that down on your paper, please, because I won't be rewriting it again and again and again. So my base in this case is going to be the 15. You can really make either, but I like to make my base a horizontal side as opposed to a vertical. That's just my preference. So I have 15 times my height of 5. So when you do this, hopefully this multiplication you have seen before. So let's go through it really quick. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5, 6, and 7. So that was 5 times 1, and then add that little 2 that you carried. So your final answer is actually going to be 75. However, some of you see that I had to write centimeters squared in there. So if you do not put the centimeters squared on your quiz, you will not be getting the points. So I didn't dock you on the homework, but just so you know, that's a thing. All right, so next one. Let me go ahead and erase some of that though, because that's annoying. Okay. So second rectangle, you have 6 times 16. For the base, again, I'm going to choose the horizontal length. And then for the height, I am going to choose my vertical length. So if I'm going to do this multiplication, I always like to put the number with the largest amount of digits on the top. I just think it looks better, it works better in my mind, but you can do either. We have 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus that 3 you carried is 9. So your answer for this one is going to be 96 feet squared. Please remember, feet squared. Very, very, very important. All right. And the last one, which, let me see how to move this. There we go. Okay. You're learning with me. Okay. So on this last one, you have 5.5 plus 5.5. So for my base, I am going to have, obviously, 5.5. And then for my height, well, look at that. It's also 5.5. All right, so this one, some of you missed because you did not put your decimal in the right spot, but you had the correct numbers. And then some of you missed this just because you had completely wrong numbers. So either one, go ahead and erase what you got wrong and rewrite the correct answer with me now. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 5, obviously 25, plus the 2 that you carried is 27. Now remember, when you are going to be moving on to multiplying by your second number here, you need this placeholder, whether it's a 0 or an X, that is up to you. I like a 0 just because it's a number, and there's a lot of other numbers there. So, but you can use the X too if you'd like. So we have 5 times 5, which again is 25, and then 5 times 5 again is 25, plus that 2 that you carried is 27. So when you add these up, you get 5, and then you get 12, and then you get 10. So this is going to be your number portion of your answer. However, you need to now put the decimal in the right spot. So that means looking at the number of numbers behind the decimal point. So in this case, I have 2. So I'm going to move 1 and then 2. So my decimal point is actually going to go right there. So my final answer for this problem is going to be 30.25 inches squared. Just realizing I should probably keep a consistent color for the answers, but you know, you live and you learn. Okay. So again, we're trying to, there we go. Aha. All right, so on to the second row. We have a rectangle with dimensions of 4 feet and 3.5 feet. So again, my base is going to be that 3.5 feet, and my height is going to be 4. I just realized I'm using Christmas colors. That was not intentional, but 'tis the season, right? Oh no, wait, Thanksgiving's first. All right, so in order to do this, I want to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. Mixed numbers are pretty and all, but they aren't really practical when you are doing any sort of operation, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, yada, yada, yada. So how you do that, you're going to take your whole number, multiply it by the 2, and add it then to the top. So 3 times 2 is going to give you 6, plus 1 is 7, and then you rewrite it over the original denominator. So we now have 7/2 times 4. Now again, so when you're multiplying a fraction times a whole number, you want to change that whole number into a fraction as well. Makes it much, much easier, because with fraction addition or fraction multiplication, you are going to simply multiply straight across, both on the top and on the bottom. So in this case, 7 times 4 is going to be 28. Your bottom number is going to be 2 times 1, which is 2. So it's 28 over 2. Now, I gave you credit for this. However, you can simplify it, and so that's what I would like you to do now. If you take the top and the bottom and you divide both by 2, you get 14 over 1, or just 14. So my final answer for this problem is 14 feet squared. All right? Okay, moving on. All right, I am again going to erase some of this with a rectangle that actually has building sides. Yes, there we go. All right, so in this one, we again have a fraction. So I am going to be changing that number into a fraction in order to make this multiplication easy. So for my base, again, I like the horizontal length. So 17 is my base, and I'm going to be multiplying that by my height of 5 over 2. Now 5 over 2 is already that improper fraction, so I don't need to do anything with that. All I have to do is make my 17, that whole number, into a fraction, so it makes my multiplication easy, because now I can multiply straight across on the top and the bottom. So 17 times 5 is going to be 85, and then 1 times 2 obviously is 2. Now again, I gave you credit for this, and because this is technically the most simplified form. However, you can write this in a mixed number if you would like to. So you have to figure out how many times does 2 go into 85. Well, it goes in 42 times. So my big number, the whole number part of my mixed number, is going to be 42. Now you come over here and you're like, okay, 42 times 2 is going to be 84. And when I take 85, the number that I have, subtracting that 84, I get 1. So I'm left over with 1 of what I had on the top of the fraction before. So my final answer is going to be 42.5 inches squared, or 85 over 2 inches squared. Alrighty. I cannot move the screen. Come on. There we go. Sort of. Kind of. Maybe. As you see my failed attempts to move the screen. Let's go ahead and erase some of those, shall we? Yeah, that's just embarrassing. Okay. This video is much more conversational than usual. And now that is bugging me, so that's okay. Alrighty, so this final one is like the third one in the first row. Both sides are decimals. So my base is going to be 2.7 times my height, which in this case is 2.5. Now, when you do decimal multiplication and division, for that matter, you ignore the decimal points at first, and then you reinsert them later. So you do not have to line them up. So let me repeat that. Do not line up the decimal. It is unnecessary and it will cause you undue heartache. So just don't do it. All right, so I have my 2.7 times my 2.5. I'm going to do my multiplication like normal, and then we'll deal with the decimal later. So 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 2 is 10, plus that 3 you carried is 13. My placeholder, because now I'm multiplying by the 2. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 2 is 4, plus that 1 is 5. So when you add these together, you get 5, 7, and 6. Now, so similar to the third problem in the first row, you now have to count the number of numbers behind each of the decimal points, and that is the number of moves you make to place your decimal. So in this case, I again have 2 numbers behind decimal points. So my decimal point is going to move 1 and then 2. So my final answer for this problem is going to be 6.75 centimeters squared. And that concludes the rectangle section.